Hi, I'm Sean, former architect, educator, artist, someone who has spent a lifetime learning to feel grounded in places I live, even if they aren't that easy to love. And this podcast is where we explore what I call purposeful engagement. It's the practice of slowing down, noticing deeply, and creating this sense of home wherever you are. Because home happens internally. It's not architecture, it's not the decor that you have, it's not even the geographic location where you are. Home is created from the inside. And with Drawn to Place and with this community that we're building, that I'm here to help you learn how to develop that sense of home wherever you are. So today's episode is part of a 5-day noticing series that I started over on Instagram and TikTok. And it's focused mostly around holiday movies, but just go follow it over there on Drawn to Place if you're not already, or get caught up. It'll be in the highlights, it'll be saved there. But even if you're listening months from now, not during the holidays, everything here will still apply. Because movies, no matter what the season are, they're the easiest, they're the gentlest, they're the best ways to learn how to notice. And I absolutely love film. I love to study film. I love to analyze film. So much so that I had a video company for 10 years. But this is not analyzing it. This is going to be super easy. I will give you like 4 steps that you can do to jump into this. Very easy, very gentle with any movie. It works. This will only work with movies that you already are very familiar with, though, which we'll get into. So don't worry about that. But why this is so easy and gentle to practice this noticing muscle with movies is because the movies are giving you a world that is already built. Not only is it built, it's built specifically for you to watch it, for you to get engaged with this story that's been created. A huge team of people have worked tireless hours making this film happen. And the lighting, the props, the production, the colors, the framing of it, the textures, the spaces, the lens choices, the camera movements, all of that has been worked out by many teams of people, not just many people, many teams of people working together to create this world that tells you exactly where to look, what to look at, and should, if it's a good movie, should every piece that you see should move you forward in this story that they're creating and elicit some sort of emotion from you, the viewer. And all of that has been thought out. Now, when we go out into the world and we're trying to notice things, that storytelling element isn't there. The world isn't designed for us to notice specific things. So we have to work a little bit harder to find those things to notice and then pin it to emotional stuff and go from just going outside and noticing garage doors or noticing windows. Yeah, but now how does that translate to home? You have to work just a little bit harder, not much. It's a really easy muscle to build, but that's why movies is so much easier, is because it's already there and you can do it in the comfort of your home, and you're going to be watching movies that you've already seen many, many times before. So it's enjoyable. You enjoy doing it. You don't need to keep notes. You don't need to sketch anything with this practice. This practice happens almost passively as you do it. Okay. But that's why movies, it's so easy, is because they're designed for you to watch them. They're designing this world for you to step into and to live in for 90 minutes, 120 minutes, however long it is, right? So because they tell you where to look, sometimes they try to get you how to feel and what to look at. It's all intentional. And when life feels chaotic or uncertain, like right now around the holidays, if you're watching this during the holidays, but really it's just kind of all of life is pretty chaotic. But when life feels chaotic or uncertain, the brain settles when it has something predictable to focus on. And that's why we're focusing on films that you've seen many, many times. Not just films you've seen 2 or 3 times. Oh, I really like that film, I want to watch it again. I'm talking about films that are your go-to films. And a lot of times for many of us, it's holiday films, right? There's a list of about 5 go-to holiday films that we watch every year. We've watched every year from being a kid all the way to however old you are now. But also just your go-to films that you've seen, 50, possibly hundreds of times, and you can still watch it again and again. Like for me, I have a lot of go-to films because I love film, but like Moneyball, Dirty Dancing, Top Gun, Wolf of Wall Street, Mr. Magorium's Wonder Emporium, White Christmas, of course. Like that's just to name a few. Breakfast Club. I love these movies, and I also am dating myself with the titles of the films that I love. But there you go. If you're watching this on YouTube, you already know how old I am. But those are just some of the ones that I love. And what happens is the shift in your brain when you're watching something predictable is why noticing inside familiar films is so powerful. You're shifting from this passive watching to this active, grounded attention. And you don't need to pay attention to the plot or the dialogue too closely. That's the important part of this. It's the predictability part. Your brain sees something predictable. It can slow down. It can kind of like, oh, whew, I know what's coming. I've been here before. I know there's going to be some stressful moments in this film, but I know it all works out, right? Your brain's going to calm down because it already knows what's coming up. It's not gathering all this information and storing it and like, what do I need? What do I not need? I'm just going to store all this information and then slowly parse it out as the story unfolds. That doesn't need to happen because your brain already knows what's coming up. So it doesn't even really need to store information. And that's why you don't need to pay attention to the plot or the dialogue too much. Now you can start noticing other parts of the film. Now you can start noticing things in a different way and looking at the film in a different way. Really, you're going to watch your favorite films for the first time if you do this practice, which I absolutely love about this. And it can happen over and over and over, right? So the science behind it is, research has shown that repetition and predictability, they calm the nervous system. Holiday films or familiar films at any time of the year, they're filled with this repetition because you've seen it so many times. Repetition of similar scenes, familiar music, visual patterns, recurring objects, anticipated scenes, iconic lines that you probably quote every day and all the time, sounds, colors. Your brain's used to that. Your brain's going to slow down. Your brain knows what's coming and it loves it. In this stressful time, if you're watching this during the holidays, in this very stressful time, that's why a lot of us go to the predictable holiday films. It's not because it's this tradition. Oh, we have to watch National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. We have to watch A Christmas Story. We have to watch White Christmas or It's a Wonderful Life, or, those are like go-to, or the Rudolph or the original Grinch. Those are go-to ones because it's tradition, but it's also very comforting, right? We probably remember, like for me, I remember thumbing through the TV guide, or in the paper, it would have the list of when the show times were going to be shown on TV. And I would circle them. We'd have it on the refrigerator. We knew what day of the week, what time Rudolph was coming on, then what time Frosty was coming on, and all those that we wanted to watch as kids. When I watch those now, I go back to those times. So I'm also reminiscing, probably romanticizing it a little bit. The nostalgia, remember the last podcast we talked about, nostalgia does kind of lie to you, but it's there for a reason. It's good. And it's just comforting because it's predictable. I know it's coming up. So your brain knows what's coming. And when you add this one small noticing exercise, you strengthen the part of your mind responsible for presence and reflection. Okay, so we're going to trigger those, which will reduce our cortisol level, which will reduce our stress. And it's very good for you in any time of the year. But so here's the practice. First thing you have to do, pick a movie you're already planning to watch. It doesn't matter what the movie is. It doesn't matter if it's an action film, if it's a thriller, if it's a holiday, if it's a romance, if it's a Hallmark movie, if it's a rom-com. It doesn't matter. Pick a movie that you're already planning to watch, that you love, that you've seen many times. Then pick one detail to notice. At the beginning of the film, just tell yourself, I'm going to focus on this color red. I'm going to focus on a certain shape, see when triangles show up, or a repeated object, or a type of lighting, or a space, or a camera move, or the framing of a character, or an element that foreshadows the ending, but only you know that because you know what the story is. So then you start looking for elements that start telling the story before you ever even notice that the story was being told as far as the ending of the story goes, right? Good filmmakers will put in little pieces and hints and foreshadowing in the story that you don't even pick up consciously. You might be picking up subconsciously, that carries a theme throughout the film that you don't notice until it's over. But then by that time, you have been so engrossed in the film and the story being told, you're seeing the large story, but you go back and watch it again and again, you start to notice these little things, and you're like, wow. And what do I mean by this foreshadowing element? Here's one example. And this is going to be spoiler alert, but this movie's been out for 50 years. So if you haven't seen it, then it's your own fault at this point. We're talking about Jaws. Okay. You already know the story and where it's going and how it ends, right? And we know how it ends with the shark being blown up by him shooting an air canister that's in the mouth of the shark. Okay, that's how it ends. And if you didn't know that, then that's on you. I mean, it's Jaws and it's 50 years old. So let's find elements earlier in the movie that foreshadow or spell out that that's going to happen. Now, in Jaws, it's the air tanks. So the next time you watch Jaws, watch for the air tanks because they show up so many times. Watch them appear in the film many times. They'll be carried in front of an actor. They'll fall and roll around the floor of the orca. A character will run into the cabin and has to re-secure them before any of it is ever used. The air tanks are showing up over and over and over and over. It's this recurring thing that's happening. You don't even notice it the first few times, or maybe you've seen it 50 times and you haven't noticed how much they show up until the very end when Brody grabs them and throws them out into the shark's mouth, right? So it's almost like Spielberg is poking fun at, but also paying homage to in a weird way, doing both simultaneously with that old adage, if you see a gun in the first act, it has to go off in the third act, right? Right. The theater kids know exactly what I'm talking about here. He doesn't do that. I mean, the air tanks don't show up in Act 1, but it's still almost like he's giving a nod to that once you start noticing the air tanks. That's one example. I've picked one thing that tells the story earlier than I expected the story to be told. Okay. I'm not pausing the film to draw. I'm not pausing the film to write down notes or any of that stuff. We're not writing a review of it. We're not going to class to analyze it. We're just noticing something. Okay, so back to the ritual. So we have pick a film, we have pick a detail, and then follow that through the film. Follow it to where you see. One fun thing that I like to do on movies that I've seen many times, and this works mostly on older films because now these newer films, they have so much bokeh and the background just falls off so soft, so quick. You don't get to see a lot of the background actors and the extras as much. But older films is to watch the extras, to watch what they're doing in the background. Watch how you're led into a scene. One example, when I was doing this and noticing background actors and background dancers and stuff in White Christmas, is there's a woman that I swear that she was hired strictly for the shape of her leg and how hard she can point her toe, because there are numerous scenes where she will be seated in a director's chair with her legs crossed and she has her leg over her other leg crossed and the toe is pointing, and the camera starts with it in the bottom third, her leg in the bottom third, and the toe is pointing into the scene, and then the camera pans to the scene and then the acting happens there. You don't really notice it. I mean, the entire thing is framed by all these other elements, but that's one major element that pulls you into that frame of the painting, basically, that has been created, this composition. Then the camera, pan, zoom, and get to your lead actors as they come into the frame and hit their spots, and dialogue goes on. Happens numerous times. That's something else that's really fun to watch. Kind of an unorthodox thing. But it also is very intentional. Those compositions are intentionally framed and they're telling a story and they're leading your eye exactly where you need to go. That curve of her leg, the hard point of her toe, which is extremely unnatural. You don't sit and point your toe as hard as you can. I don't care who you are, but that's what she does, and that's what they needed her to do. And I know she was directed to do that, which is why every time I watch it, I tell my wife, I know this woman was hired strictly for her legs. Which she's probably a dancer, so it's not the case, but it's still funny to think about. Notice little things like that. So you're picking a film, you're picking a detail, you're following it through the film. Now, when the film is over, after you've done all this noticing, no notes are taken, just sit for a minute or two. Sit and think about this movie that you've watched 20, 50, 100 times or more. After you did this little practice of noticing, what shifts in you regarding your appreciation of this film or the director or the production team or the production designer or sound designer, lighting, whatever it was that you noticed, but just even the film in general itself, what shifts do you notice regarding your appreciation of it? Did your appreciation of it increase? Do you feel like you know this film that you thought you knew inside out and backwards? Do you feel like you now have this deeper connection with it? This almost new found appreciation of it, right? Do you have this connection, this understanding of it, unlike you've ever had before? If you're like me, you do. All those films that I mentioned that I love to watch at the beginning of this podcast, when I watch them, and sometimes I just watch them passively, super passively, but most of the time I'm watching for certain things, moves the director made, camera movements, or is it a lockdown shot? And when those happen, is it handheld, or the lighting, or just any of this myriad of things that you can pick in a film and notice. But every time I do that, even movies like Top Gun that I've seen, I know I've seen that at least 100 times. I grab something new from it each time, and my appreciation for the film and the filmmakers deepens. So if you're like me, that will happen with you too as you do this. Now, that's what changes a place into a home. That's where we get into the whole philosophy of Drawn to Place. Why I started Drawn to Place was to get connected to a place and then take place to a home and then to my home. Okay, we're making those distinctions, saying that if you say something is my home, you have a very deep connection to it. It has become part of you. You are part of it, right? A place can just be a place, and you can have a connection to a place. Yeah, you can have a connection to a home. That's a little bit more. Then it's my home, right? So we're moving in this. What you've just done, if you feel this deeper connection with this movie, which I'm pretty certain you probably will, that's exactly what you're doing when you go out into the world and you notice just one simple thing. When you notice a window, when you notice garage doors, when you notice types of cars, colors of cars, when you notice front doors, when you notice mushrooms or flowers or trees, you're gaining this exact same connection out in the world. But practicing it on film strengthens that noticing muscle, and it will start to happen without you even being completely conscious of it. All of a sudden you'll start noticing, oh, I'm seeing that, I'm seeing that, I'm seeing that, right? As the days go on from this purposeful, mindful, active, grounded attention, what do you notice about yourself, and how and what you notice about life as you go through it, right? Did you practicing on the film, are you noticing it more, being more, that noticing muscle being more active in your day-to-day life? Maybe not right away. It's like anything. You can't go to the gym once or twice and then all of a sudden you feel so much stronger, or you are stronger. You're not yet. You're still just building this muscle, but you'll start to notice it little by little. It's also something fun to do. Just watch your film, the films that you love to watch anyway. You're not analyzing the film. You're just practicing attention, and the same muscles that change how you experience your everyday environment, those are what you're strengthening as you do this with film. So why it matters, I've already touched on it, but I want to just sum it up in that it matters because noticing isn't an aesthetic exercise. It's not you going on a walk. It's not your sketchbook. It's not your notebook. It's not your journal. That's not what noticing is. And I've said it before, the art is what happens between that act. If you're writing it down, if you're recording something and you noticing, that's where the art of this is actually happens. And the real magic of it happens just in you noticing it and registering that you've noticed it. Okay, it's a grounding practice. It pulls you out of autopilot. It reconnects you with where you are, and it helps you create home from the inside out. Now, pulling you out of autopilot, you've watched these films many, many times, and you've watched these films many, many times the exact same way. What I mean by that is, you want to go to film, you put it on, and you just watch it. And you're like, here comes this scene, then here comes this scene. This scene's coming up. Oh, this is kind of a boring scene. I won't really pay attention to this because I get it. Okay, there's this one, right? You've watched these films the exact same way every time. This time, I pulled you out of that autopilot, told you watch for one one element. That's it. All you're doing is watching for one specific thing, looking at the extras. You're looking for the color yellow. Where does the color yellow show up? Now you've become this active participant in the movie again, like you were the first few times you watched it when you were an active participant in trying to understand the story. I pulled you out of autopilot. That's what noticing does. And you're in autopilot. We all are. You can't go through life day to day without having some sort of element of autopilot. I mean, I have autopilot. I get up in the morning, go down and make coffee, then come up to my studio until my daughter wakes up. I mean, that's my commute to work, if you will. Right? You probably have, if you actually have a commute to work, I mean, you get up, you shower, you get dressed, you make your lunch, you get in the car, you take the same route to work, you take the same route home, right? We go through life, a lot of it in autopilot. It's not always a bad thing until you're going through autopilot and not remembering days, and then not remembering weeks, and not remembering months, right? And then we start jumping from holiday to holiday. That's all we do. That's where it becomes bad. That's where this noticing practice will really pull you out of that and help you get from place to a home to my home. This right here is just a training ground. Movies are simply a training ground. They're a low pressure, cozy, beautiful, wonderful, warm little blanket, wonderful place to begin. So if you want to follow along, like I said earlier, with the full 5-day series, head over to Instagram or TikTok, Drawn to Place, all one word if you're not already there. And part of that community, there you can get caught up on them. You can watch them. You can be with us if you're watching this in real time. Then you can watch them in real time as I release the 5 days. If not, they're going to be in my highlights. They'll be there. You can find them. They're easy to find. Or if you want to read more about this, I go a little bit more in depth, just kind of more of this on my Substack newsletter. All those links are going to be in the show notes and in the stuff below. You know where it is. If you're not already following me, please follow along. Please share this podcast with somebody else you think would really benefit from it. We're building this very, very strong community of noticing and helping each other and bettering the world through us being actively engaged. So until next time, I'm Sean. Thanks for being here, and keep noticing.